Welcome back to Project 613. Today and over the next few days, we will be talking about a new topic. We will learn all about the Jewish judicial system, how judges are appointed, what their job is, and how the Supreme Court, the Beit Din, functions. So the very first mitzvah that we have in this regard is the Torah telling us, Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sha'arecha, which means you shall appoint for yourself judges and officers in all of your gates, which means in all of your towns and villages. It is a mitzvah for us to appoint a Jewish judicial system. We should have judges who will determine the law, and then officers who will implement that law, make sure people are following the laws of the Torah and of the mitzvahs. They will teach people the difference between good and bad, and to implement punishments for those who violate the law. The reason for this is that the law should not be taken into the hands of each individual, and not every single individual has the discretion to decide the law of the Torah. Rather, this is decided by the Beit Din, by the Jewish Supreme Court. And included in this mitzvah is the hierarchy of the judicial system, where you have a very small Beit Din that could consist of just 3 judges. But then you have an average Beit Din, which would be a panel of 23 judges. And in fact, any town or village that had a decent-sized population of at least 120 people living in it had an obligation to establish such a court of 23 judges who would rule and preside over minor matters. And of course, if there were greater matters, they could be forwarded on to the Supreme Court. But the court of 23 judges, which would be established in every single town and village, that was known as the Sanhedrin Katana, the miniature Sanhedrin, the miniature Jewish court, and they would gather in each city. Then you had the Supreme Jewish Court, known as the Sanhedrin Gedola. This was a panel of 70 judges, plus the judge that presided over the whole thing. So altogether a total of 71, of course, because you have to have a majority number, so you have to have an odd number. So a total of 71 judges. They would gather in the Holy Temple. They are known as the Sanhedrin Gedola, the Great Sanhedrin. And of course, it was the job of this Sanhedrin to rule on all major decisions, and any disputes that would take place within the smaller areas and in the smaller courts would all be brought back to the Supreme Court for a final say on the matter. Now, the Jewish Sanhedrin ceased to operate by the Romans. It was forced to disband in about the 4th century of the Common Era, and ever since then we do not have a Sanhedrin. One of the reasons for this is because in order to be a member of the Sanhedrin, one had to have a special type of semicha, which was only given in the land of Israel and which could be traced back all the way to Moses. Since we do not have such a semicha today, we do not have a Sanhedrin or the power to reinstate the Sanhedrin until the coming of Mashiach. This is the first mitzvah that we learned today. The second mitzvah that we have is that when it comes to appointing a specific judge, we have a prohibition where the Torah tells us it's forbidden to appoint a judge who is not well versed in wisdom and who does not have personal integrity of his own character and who isn't an honest person in his own personal life. And the only reason why we would be appointing him would be because of his wealth, or perhaps because he's a relative or he is in a powerful position. All of this is forbidden. The only criteria that is used to determine a judge who sits on the Jewish Beit Din is, number 1, his knowledge of halacha, his knowledge of the law, and number 2, his personal behavior needs to be in accordance with that knowledge. And finally, the third mitzvah that we learned today is that when there is a dispute amongst a Sanhedrin or amongst a Beit Din, they are to follow majority law. This is both when it comes to determining Jewish law, if there's a dispute about whether something should be kosher or non-kosher, or whether something should be allowed or not allowed, as well as when there's a dispute amongst litigants who come in to a Beit Din. If there is a disagreement, we follow the majority, and this is a mitzvah of the Torah. In the coming days, we will learn much more about the court and how it operates. In the meantime, have a wonderful day.